concerns about Nvidia, right? Should investors be concerned about Nvidia's recent stock market performance? What are the keys, risks? And this is interesting because it said this actually last week when we referenced Meta. When Meta had they had very good earnings last quarter.
Yep.
And their stock dropped because of comments that the COO made, and the market just was a little pessimistic about the comments. It just disregarded the actual fundamentals. And so if you haven't watched Nvidia, they released their earnings last week, and it was positive. Actually, it wasn't bad, but it was a little bit of a disappointment for Wall Street. And as a result, the stock actually dropped. Even so, that's what I'm saying. Stock can drop on positive earnings. And we said this on Monday, and that's exactly what happened on Wednesday. It dropped on positive earnings. So does this mean that the hype is just too much, and that it is not? Sometimes in life you can't live up to the hype, right? It's like if you are, or if they're already saying you're the next Michael Jordan, even if you are a great player, you're still going to disappoint 9 times out of 10 because you're not Michael Jordan, right? And that's hard to live up to that type of hype. So is this Nvidia's hype too much for it to actually, live up to?
No, I think it resets them back to reality. I think we all can agree when they said Blackwell was not going to be announced, that for sure is going to impact the market. I think if you continue to have exponential returns, you need to produce at an exponential level. But I do respect Jensen and the CFO for being honest and saying, hey, we won't be able to release it when we do. I think that'll push the stock up even higher, but I'm glad that they allowed them to reset to come back to a normal price. They bought back a lot of shares. Are they going to give up that lead? No. A lot of AMD has come down, Intel shambles. So they don't have a big competitive threat at the current moment. But I think if they would have announced that Blackwell was going to be released January, February, I think the reviews would have been out of here and the stock would have went up even more. But I respect a CEO, a CFO, a C-suite for being honest about what's going on in the company. And like you said, the revenue miss was slight. They still have a great competitive advantage. From a moat and competitive advantage standpoint, they don't have a nearest competitor. They're still really big in gaming. If Elon's dream of the auto taxi or autonomous taxi market becomes real, they're going to help lead that. So they're fine. It's like if you have one bad quarter in a basketball game, like I'm not trading Michael Jordan in the third quarter because he had 15 points instead of 28. So I think some of this was overhyped, but I'm glad. I can only imagine as a CEO, I'm glad they're back to a realistic expectation. So next quarter, they can over deliver, but it's hard to over deliver 8 quarters in a row.
Yeah. I think overhyped. I'm big on the overhyped sensation. When you talk about the numbers, it's kind of like what we were talking about last week. We were like, maybe not a grand slam, but a home run. So I think they still hit a home run. You're talking about revenue increase 122%.
That's like for a company of that size. Like we're not talking about
let me just say that number.
$100 million company. Like
let me just say the number again. The revenue increased 122% year over year, reaching 30 billion, primarily on the data center segment, which brought in 26 billion. The growth is still growing in terms of Hopper and Blackwell. So the issue with Blackwell, which is the new GPU, not so much that it's a production issue, it's how it's being made. So it's more difficult than its predecessor. And so it's taking a little bit more time. But from what I listened to Jensen's call, like I actually listened to him, he's like, pretty much he's saying, y'all bugging. Like, I'm telling y'all this is coming, and I'm telling you why we're having delays.
The least fate I've ever heard. Yep.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
They also bought $50 billion worth of stock back. Like
that tells you how much they believe. Like if it was 2 billion or 1.5, 50 is a lot, bro.
Yeah. So when you see a stock buyback like that, that means the company believes in obviously their investors, they believe in their future guidance, but they're also saying like we're taking shares back, and when there's less shares, obviously the stock price goes up. That didn't happen. Well, why didn't it happen? A couple of reasons, and we kind of alluded to it, was the idea of how long can they sustain it? right? How long will the Metas, how long will the Apples and the Microsofts be willing to pay premium dollars for these chips? There's no answer to that because they haven't put them into use yet. We haven't seen if these CapEx expenditures are going to make sense for them long term. So I guess that's the pullback. But yeah, I think overhyped. If it's not Jordan, it's LeBron at this point.
And the crazy part, like when they made the modification to be able to sell into China, like bro, they have 9 mega buyers. Now if they go get Lilly or Lenovo or another big player in Europe, Daniel, I know you got all them Spotify bot farms. You probably want to tap into Nvidia to help that go. I know the music industry got you by the cojones, but
so that
if they get 5 more if they're worth this at 9 mega buyers, if they get 7 more in 3 years with Blackwell, what is that going to do?
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, you think about that future product. It hasn't happened yet, but that's potentially more growth when you're talking about the Chinese market. And then they had some other segments, gaming. They saw increasing, autos increase. So there's different pockets that they're actually seeing growth in. It was interesting, like you said, when I think it was the last quarter when we watched Meta pull back after just meeting every revenue model. This is part of it. This is part of it. But like I said, either way, you're gonna look at Thursday and say, yes, I'm happy I'm in Nvidia, or hey, it pulled back a little bit to a point where I can grab some more shares. I don't think you lose either way. When like, is it I got a text, a couple of texts like, is this the load the boat number? And I'm like, nah. But somebody caught one of our gyms when we were talking about it previously, when we caught 107. They're like, well, what's the next target? And I was like, does it start with a 9? And that next target for me was 97. And obviously it hit there, but yeah, it goes down to 119, 117. Nothing to sleep over.
And the crazy part, they haven't even expanded to business to government or national education. Like, they have some big targets on the, like, once again, they have 9 mega buyers. Man, if they add 3, that'll push them up into the 230s, 240. Like, yeah, I think you'll be on the wrong side of history to not be in favor of the stock over the next 4 years.
I'll open this up to both of you guys, and Stripe, maybe start with you, because just from an eye standpoint of viewing it, is it working to his benefit, or will it work to his detriment to be the known CEO, right? Like, we know Tim Cook, we know Zuckerberg, and now Jensen is becoming one of those CEOs that we now know. Does that open it up for attacks?
Yeah, of course. It definitely opens up for attack, but it also could be beneficial as well. I mean, it worked for Elon Musk. It worked for Jeff Bezos.
Steve Jobs.
It worked for Steve Jobs. It's working for Tim Cook. It's working for Sam Altman. So
Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller. Like, if we go back to the history, James Pierpont Morgan, like, I know they'll criticize us sometimes for the celebrity. The one thing that the celebrity part is really good for, everyone write the Q score. If that Q score is high enough, you will find another nest if you get kicked out. As soon as Steve Jobs got replaced by Scully, what'd he do? He went to Pixar and got hot, but he made sure his name stayed in the press. So when he came back, these were my rules in my company. I'm going to run it how I want to run it. Kind of hard to do if no one knows you. Yeah. That's the part that's like, you need that celebrity CEO. And if you look at the index, the celebrity CEOs, okay, really quick. Who's the CEO of Intel?
Well, how about I give you, so like, let's take Bezos, right? Amazon CEO, but Jesse is now the CEO. Now that's kind of like just doing a job, growing business, kind of out of the limelight. Same thing with Lilly, he's kind of out of the limelight, even to a set. Nutella at Microsoft, he's done interviews, quieter, right? So I'm just there's 2 distinctive type of CEOs. I'm just. Right, because I could see as Jensen, he's becoming a superstar. He's becoming a star. He's becoming a household name. The leather jacket, the signing the boobies, like
the largest.
See, that's the part that, like, once he did that, and he went WWF Shawn Michaels, I said, "Boy, you done went too far." And we'd all been there.
The booby sign.
But I would prefer my CEO to not be signing nobody titties at a convention.
Well, most of the largest companies in American history have always had a superstar CEO.
Absolutely,
especially in the last 20 years. If you look at Microsoft. they had Bill Gates. If you look at Apple, they had Tim Cook. I mean, they had
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. If you look at Tesla, they have Elon Musk. If you look at
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, they have Jeff Bezos.
Michael Dell from Dell Computer.
I mean, the only one, maybe Google. The CEOs aren't as well. Then they haven't really, put themselves out there as other former people that I just named. But most of the top 5 companies, if you look at Meta, you have Mark Zuckerberg. Most of the top 5 companies have had superstar CEOs.
Yep.
Like 90%. So
good for business.
It's inevitable. It's just inevitable.
But one of the things I talk about on stage at InvestFest, character of the founder or CEO. I don't think Jensen has a character issue, but I do like if my CEO is public facing to have impeccable character. You see that with Satya. You see it with Tim Cook. You've seen it with even at Google with Sergey, like very little scandals, very little issues. So Zuckerberg, very little scandals, right? So it digs more into the character of the person. But even from that boob sign and thing, like he's cleaned it up since then. And I think focused back in. So I would prefer a silent CEO like the one at Lilly, but if you can be a rock star and deliver, it's definitely a multiple on that for sure.
Yeah, I'm just thinking from a standpoint when we think of these rock stars, all the guys that you just named, antitrust usually comes. SEC hearings usually come. Now you look at Zuckerberg 3 years ago. It felt like every month he's sitting in front of Congress trying to defend himself and his business. Whereas we haven't seen that yet from Jensen. We haven't seen it yet, but it could be coming.
Well, that's gonna come regardless. You can't avoid that. Like I said, Google, they still face antitrust, and they don't have a superstar CEO. So no, if you get to the top 5, you're gonna get. It's gonna
make the rounds.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Yeah, it happened with AT&T. Like when it was my bill, people didn't know they broke up AT&T over monopolistic practices. Most people didn't know the CEO then. So yeah, if you become top 5, it's going to happen regardless. So
top five.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't avoid it.
Can't.
Good problem.
Got to stay hot at all costs, no matter what.
It's a good problem, right?
It's a great problem to have.
You
have $1 trillion market cap, and then you took a company from $90, now it's worth $1,000. Rock star. And if we're gonna be very honest, Jensen not as great as Steve Jobs, but he is this generation Steve. Like we need that for even as a bunch of American brands have been sold off internationally, we need superstar CEOs to look to as a beacon of hope in the market.
Yeah.
We really do.
And even I feel like they're not in a position to really they need their services. The chips is something that's vitally important. So you can't attack them. You can only attack them so much. What they got to look out for copycats, like people that's like, their competitors that's coming in the space, that probably more of a threat to them than the government. People that want to because even like if you talked about, like we joke about the fashion thing, but you can just see like in the financial literacy space, a lot of people have copied, like, you start to see drip reports or people wearing eye spectacles that don't need prescription glasses. I'm just being honest. So when you set a mark, right, you're going to have people that start to copy, right? So it's up to you to be one step ahead. That's why it's like, okay,
all times.
We're not doing pajamas this year. We're going to do suits. So now y'all copy that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know what I'm saying? Because
continue to pivot.
If you don't reinvent yourself, you're destined for failure.
Yeah, for failure.
It's just because at a certain point in time, when everybody starts to copy you, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, the replica is going to get more traction than the original. And then it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to really know who's the original and who's not the original.
Facts.
Like the give me my money thing, like the dude that started that's from our neighborhood. Nobody knows.
Really? That. I didn't know that.
Yeah, shout out to Jono. Nobody knows that. He went viral 10 years ago off that, but it's gotten so diluted now that it doesn't matter. The original person that started it doesn't even matter, unfortunately. That happens all the time with culture. Like we see stuff that happens all the time with who started this dance, and JB Block Boy started this, right? And it's like by the time Fortnite got it, it's Fortnite's thing.
Everywhere.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think that that's important for all the entrepreneurs out there to kind of keep in mind that you're gonna get competition from people that's copying what you're doing. That's part of it. What are you doing to reinvent yourself and staying one step ahead?
Yeah, my biggest worry about Nvidia is if they expand into China, will China be able to recreate those chips? If so, that is something we don't want.
Giving them
Yeah.
access to the technology.
If you get close enough, because China's so great at replicating everything.
Well, China's at it with Japan right now over chips.
Talk
So
about it.
yeah, so it's going to be an interesting,
It's an interesting time.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
For sure.
there's always AMD, guys, which is a great company. Great company.
Yeah.
Second fiddle, but great company.
Yep. Harold Miner.
Pay attention who did this, quote unquote. I know we always like kind of like gloss over it when we say like nobody knows what's in the CHIPS Act, but like really read it and look where the money is going.
You can see
the government is saying that we're not letting these companies die. We're actually putting money into these companies to make sure that we stay dominant and we don't become as reliant on other companies that are overseas. Look inside.
And then Intel got that money and then talk about they want to split it into two companies. Y'all ain't Damon Hove. What is like what? Come on, man. Don't nobody want two factions of that garbage. Shout to you off. I have a run into you at
they're gonna run up on you. Intel, the execs about to come after you.
These are just jokes.
I'm
gonna put on my cape then. I'm just catering to my audience.
Of course we support.
Cap order, please.
I got a Dell computer right here with an Intel chip.
For real. A compact Rosario.
Compact.
With a Pentium 3 processor in it. Right.
What about the potential $10 trillion valuation
of Nvidia?
Yeah.
Shout out to the analysts who came up with it. I've been there too, trying to make a hot point, and 10 trillion is crazy. I ain't even gonna hold you. That's crazy. What's the entire valuation of the whole stock market? 52? Like 10 trillion. They must about to cut rates 14 times before the year is over. I don't see it.
But did he give a time frame?
No, the great thing to do is to give a bold ass prediction with no time behind it.
110 trillion.
8 years, like I told you, see. So
total market cap is 110 trillion.
I mean, it's not theoretically impossible. It just depends on how long. It's like saying Bitcoin can get to $1 million. That's not.
If it may take 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he says, all right, it's going to get to 10 trillion in 20 years.
20 years.
Possible. We'll see, man. Yeah. The way inflation kicking up now, that should maybe possible in 12 years. I ain't even gonna lie. And the crazy part is like if they figure out how to corner a bunch of other sectors and then they start going after the top 4 in every sector, possible in 12 or 15 years.
That's what's the market cap right now?
2.9.
Yeah, almost 3.
So I mean, it's almost impossible that it won't get to that in 20 years. That's only 3 doubles in stock price.
But they got to deliver on Blackwell. Like
that's if it works.
Well, I'm just saying,
it has to work amazing.
Well, not really. I mean, if it goes up 7% to like 10% a year for 20 years, there you have it.
I mean, if we're playing a long game,
if it goes up 10, if it averages out at like 10% a year over the course of the next 20 years, which is very reasonable expectation.
Yeah.
I mean, because once it triples, once it doubles, it's in 4 or 5 trillion, and then all you got to do is double one more time, and then it's in 10 trillion.
You're talking about some exponential numbers,
though. But if that's what I'm saying, the product has to work. If the product has to work,
obviously, I'm just saying it's based off of like past performance is not a guarantee of future expectations, but it is something that you can gauge off of. So if we look at Apple's performance for the last 30 years, we can kind of gauge it for the next 20 years, right? Yeah. We can kind of gauge their performance off the last 10 years, and we can gauge the need. It's only going to be more need for chips. The demand's only going to grow. So we can kind of have a guesstimate of what it would do over the next 10 to 20 years, right? And that's a reasonable expectation.
If AI delivers, yeah, they'll be in pole position to be able to take advantage of it. But if they unveil the lid and see the most AI is
Yeah.
pipe dream at best.
And they have the lead. So they have the lead for sure for the next at least 3 years.
Yeah.
At least.
Oh yeah, easily. But we probably half decade.
Yeah, we could say on conservative, we could say 3, but we could really go to 5, the lead in the space.
Yeah.
So that's a hell of a head start.
And it depends on their focus. I know, because I can only imagine the press and worldwide reception and love and adornment that he's receiving. If he can stay focused for another 5 years. Whew.
Yeah.
And Steve got started earlier though. And succession planning is really important. Like who are you gonna hand a company off to? Because Jensen's a little bit older.
And it's made people money. We can't, like, we have to put that part in it, right? Like, this is a company that has made retail investors money over the past 3 to 4 years that they've never seen before.
Yep.
That just it alone, people just hear the name because the average person who's just invested, and if they put money in it 4 years ago, has made money.
A ton.
Word of mouth is the best publicity. So it makes him a superstar in a sense because you've made money with his company.
Big lesson. Continue to over deliver at every turn. If they can do that, they'll be A-okay.